Hi again, this is Rick with AmazingAccuracy.com, and today is August 22nd, 2018. It's currently 12:38 p.m. Chicago time. All right, well, I'm watching the intraday movements of the euro, and I thought I'd take a look at what was going on as related to the F dates. And so I'm looking at the daily euro futures chart. That's what you see right here. This is the futures chart. Now, I do all my analysis on futures and commodity charts. And in the currencies, I look at the Australian dollar, the British pound, the Canadian dollar, the euro, and the Japanese yen futures. However, these also convert over to the Forex pairs, specifically the Australian to US dollar, the US dollar to Canadian dollar, the British pound to US dollar, the euro to US dollar, and the US dollar to Japanese yen. You'll note that the Canadian dollar and Japanese yen has the US dollar listed first. So those will be the inverted or the exact opposite of what you would see on a futures chart. However, we're looking at the euro, so it's 1-to-1. Looking at the euro futures, the front month here, I believe it's September, you're actually looking at the euro US dollar in the Forex. It's basically the same, the pattern is identical, and so the two are interchangeable when it comes to forecasting market terms. All right, with all that out of the way, what I want to bring your attention to is I've updated this chart here, this daily chart of the euro, to reflect the current price bar for today, August 22nd. It's Wednesday. And that way I can take a look at how it relates in the cycle pattern and to the F dates. And here I'm looking at, okay, look like we were off on the forecast back here in August 13th. You can see this little diamond here. It went out of our window of influence here, or the allowance of deviation, you might say, of 1 bar, because you can see the actual turn occurred 2 bars. So it's a bar outside of the allowable window here. So we just call that a bust. It was a forecast that did not work out because you know, our turn is 1 bar outside of that window. So oops, but that happens. Otherwise, we'd be hitting 100%, but we're pretty darn close. Now we notice that the next F date doesn't occur until all the way out here, and nothing's happened here. Everything's gone straight up, and so there's no turns in between here. That was perfect. But now we are here, and we have this $ F date, and for those not familiar with what the $ means, that's just kind of giving it a few extra points of probability. It just means it's a stronger indication. And so I kind of gave it a $ indication because it's like money, you know, when you're getting close to 100%. It's not 100%, but it is a few ticks higher than ones here that don't have a $. Okay, so I always like to have that indicated, that you see a $, you may want to pay attention. All right. Well, today is 1 day just prior to this date of August 23rd here. That, however, means that it is within its realm of plus or minus 1 bar. This means we start looking now for a change in direction. So whether you trade the daily time frame or you trade the intraday, like you're a day trader, if you've been going long the euro, and that's what we've been playing off since back here, but if you've been going and you're buying all the swing lows during the minute chart, the 5-minute chart, the hour chart, whatever the case may be, I personally prefer the hour and 4-hour when I'm doing day trading. But whatever your flavor is, the thing is you do want to kind of go with the direction of the daily movement, and if the daily is moving up, 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 it makes very little sense to be selling in your day trades unless you just love that extra risk. So here we're coming to a point now where the probability is really high that we're going to be looking for a downturn now in the euro, because we have this strong indication here that the cycles are indicating that in this time period, which is within 1 bar of this 823 here, and so we're looking at now to start, because we are in this overbought zone. You see this green zone here. It's a shorter overbought zone than this one up here, but you want to pay attention to every one of them. Just like this shorter one down here bounce prices up, you want to look for the potential for this to start moving prices down. When you start noticing that happening, and the probability is very strong that we're going to get a swing top in this zone here, so you want to look between now and of course Friday, you're going to be wanting to be very cautious taking them long direction trades and start looking more on the short direction trades. Now, I can't give you trading advice because that's just not what my function is. My function is to forecast market price action, for example, market turns based on cycle analysis, geometric analysis, things like that. Okay, so I'm analyzing the chart, giving you my my expectations for the euro, and then I leave it up to you to decide how you want to trade it. But I'm just kind of speaking out of the side of my mouth here, saying basically that it's always wise to trade in the direction of the trend. And in this case here, if you're a day trader, then your trend is based on what's going on in the day time frame. If you're a person who trades end of day, you know, you hold your trades for 1, 2, 3 days or more, then your trend is based more on the weekly time frame. So it's always a time frame or so higher than what you trade in is usually the wise course to go. Okay, so anyway, we have that here. So look for the euro to likely be putting in a swing top at this time and to start moving down. Now, there is a projection. I have a projection, and that is that somewhere around Labor Day weekend, like September 3rd, for example, is my next significant target here for the euro. Now I'm going to go to the weekly price chart here because this is significant. Now right here you see that as I had predicted in my previous video on the euro, the last one I did on the euro, the discussion here is for a weekly swing bottom to occur for this weekly F date you see here. Well, that has indeed occurred because you can see this week moved higher, confirming that as a weekly swing bottom. But also to note, and I may have mentioned it, I can't remember, but I may have mentioned it, and it's likely I would have, because the next weekly F date is right here for, shows week ending September 7th. Let's see, is that right? Yep, September 7th. And then it has this a less than sign that you see in here, which means that because it's a plus or minus 1 bar, it just so happens that one side is weighed with a higher probability than the other. It doesn't mean that it will happen. It just is a probability measurement. That's all it is. But it just tells me that if I see something 1 bar early of this that looks really, really good for a weekly turn, and it happens to have this less than in here, I'm going to give it a few more points in my head that, hey, I may really want to pay attention to that weekly bar for a weekly swing turn. So in this case here, we did make that weekly swing bottom here. Notice it did not happen in the oversold zone after coming off of an overbought zone and going all the way down. It made this bounce. This also puts alarm bells in my head to be careful, because just because we have a weekly swing bottom here and we moved up, now we have this next probability of a weekly swing occurring here, which would have to be a top because prices are moving up. There's no way to make a bottom here yet unless prices were moving down. So we need to start looking for prices to move down to make either a swing bottom for this one, or prices would have to rise up to make a swing top for this one. I'm anticipating, based on what we saw on the daily, that the probability is pretty good that we could be looking at moving down here and maybe trying to go for this oversold zone, assuming it doesn't adjust in a later calculation. I'm going to go based on what I see now rather than what I think might happen later. So in this case here, we have a probability here where prices could start weakening here for this, setting us up for a much more substantial bottoming during this Labor Day weekend, which we've already discussed was my target on the daily for over here, assuming we get this swing top for this FD. I hope that makes sense. It's a lot of information to pile on, especially if you're kind of new to my way of thinking, because everything I talk about and do is based on time. And I see these things, and I see, okay, you know, we have not reached this oversold zone here, and I'm thinking, okay, we still can go towards it. We may not go all the way down into it, but I have this weekly turn to look at. This is also a cycle period, historical cycle period for a weekly turn, and I'm anticipating that if prices move down into the 9.3, move down, of course, into week ending 9.7, which 9.3 resides, that is going to be one very, very important week for the euro. Of course, the opposite could occur. We could continue higher weekly into this weekly turn date here. It would then still be very important, but in the reverse direction. I'm a little skeptical about that, and I'll tell you why. One big reason why, not shown here, but below my chart here, my indicators show that this bottom that we have right here, in relation to this bottom we have right here, which was just this little push up, the oscillator indicators, whether you're looking at stochastic or MACD, they formed what's called a bullish divergence pattern, where the bottoming of the oscillator for here did not go below the bottoming of the oscillator here, which is a bullish indication. So overall, I'm very bullish that we're looking at bottoming at this time for the euro. Now, of course, we can do all kinds of Fibonacci things like this and see if we got, you know, here we got maybe a 786 support down in here in this oversold zone. There was previous highs here, so that can be support. There's things we can do like that. We can even go with, for example, time price squares, and you know, see if there's anything here. I don't see anything with time price squares, but I'm based everything on time here, and so that's my outlook for the euro. So I'm going to summarize real quick. Let me save this. Okay, here in the daily, right now, short term, especially for you day traders, the probability is very high. We are making a daily top at this time, and to start looking for a pullback down and possibly all the way into Labor Day. Overall, there will be, you know, gyrations along the way. But that's my overall target, is I believe that Labor Day weekend will be an important weekend for a turn weekly and daily in the euro. But for short term right now, look for a swing top in the euro. Thanks for watching.